Today, we have Kim Brouzes joining us. Kim is a member of the board of directors for the Ontario AT Professional Association, a highly respected Ontario athletic therapist, and our first interview under our new banner of AT Innovate. Hello, and welcome to Athletic Therapy Ontario's Health in Motion podcast. My name is Dawn Duncan, and I'm pleased to be your host. The association is proud to be showcasing its members who are engaging in clinical innovation, research advanced, evidence-informed treatment protocols. Today's podcast takes you to the innovation labs and gives you a first glance into emerging trends in athletic care. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you.
I've prepared a few questions for you, Kim. Are you ready to share insights on the device, the nature of the breakthrough the device represents, and your role in this innovative enterprise?
I sure am.
Great.
Introducing the Kinmetrix ARC, a revolution in neck strengthening technology, designed to enhance neck strength, flexibility, and balance with unparalleled precision. At the heart of the ARC lies a fusion of advanced robotics and state-of-the-art sensors. With cutting-edge software, the ARC tracks every movement with meticulous accuracy. Its patented design and technology is both powerful and intuitive. With isometric and isokinetic capabilities, the ARC delivers targeted strengthening exercises, isolating specific areas to address weaknesses and enhance performance. Neck strength plays a pivotal role in overall performance and injury prevention. A powerful neck supports balance, stability, and resilience. The future of sports safety and performance is here. With the Kinmetrix ARC, elevate your training, protect your athletes, and redefine the boundaries of athletic achievement. Kinmetrix. Precision, performance, protection. Find out more at kinmetrix.com.
Could you please share why Kinmetrix chose to develop a clinical tool solely for the neck?
Yes, absolutely. So, as we roll out this, athlete engineering, which is a term I think a lot of us are starting to hear. There's a lot of devices out there, a lot of wearable tech, sports tech, that can give us information, data, and metrics on every part of the body but the neck. As we return athletes to sport, we return people to work. We work with WSAB, or maybe it's HCI for car accidents, and someone's looking for, are they ready to go back? The questions was, our answers have always been subjective. We think there's full range. We think they've returned to their baseline for strength of the neck, but there's never been an objective tool that we could actually confirm that decision with. We could design, and we probably will design, another device for maybe it's the knee or the ankle. But to start with the neck, we felt that that had the biggest gap in information and in gathering quantitative data. So we started with the neck.
Thanks, Kim. You mentioned that the neck is uncharted territory within the anatomy, but within the growing sense that neck strengthening is critical to safe engagement in most sports, not just high impact ones. Why do you think there is such a focus now on neck pain, neck injuries, and range of neck ailments? Is it partially because of the focus on concussions is providing information from the posthumous study of CTE in professional and other athletes?
I think I'm going to divide that into three silos. I believe that there's actually probably three reasons why we're seeing more of a neck involvement. One is definitely the concussions and CTE. We all know, Claude Lemieux, who's passed away recently. That's obviously something that Canadians have held close to them. So CTE, if anybody knows of Chris Nowinski, who was a former WW wrestler, he suffered a severe concussion. I think it was early 2000s. Anyway, he is the one that has the clinic inside Boston University Hospital that you can pre-donate your brain. And recently, the youngest diagnosed CTE posthumously, so after they passed away, was a 17-year-old. This year, it's a 15-year-old, stage 1. They may have not died because of, but they died with it. We don't know when CTE starts. We don't know enough about multiple hits and what that leads to in terms of multiple concussions and trauma to the brain. That's one silo that we obviously need to solve. The second one we're hearing more is this athlete engineering again, where we're building these monsters from the shoulders down. We know their HRV, we know their mid-thigh pull, we know their VO2 max, and we know all this information to engineer an athlete, so to make them basically a better machine. But what that's doing essentially is it's neglecting the neck. We're creating these bobblehead effects. Without having a strong neck, we're causing more problems and easier trauma to the head because they're stronger, they're faster, they're more explosive, but we're not accessing the neck. So that middle silo for us would be the athlete engineering piece. The third one that we're seeing trends toward is longevity. We are seeing longevity plays of stronger quads, stronger grip strength. And what we don't know is whether the neck should be in this category. As we collect data, I think we will see the importance of neck and neck strength and a reduction in osteoarthritis, degenerative disc disease, maybe it's Dowger's hump, all these things that are happening in the neck. If we can make it stronger, perhaps the neck will have a longevity play. I would answer the three of them. Concussion and CT for sure. Athlete engineering involving the neck is important. And I think the longevity play are the three reasons.
Kim, what's so exciting about what you're sharing with us is that it speaks directly to why many of us remain passionately committed to bridging science and clinical practice with emerging technology. A 2025 review of 21 studies was published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine. The bottom line from this review clearly shows that neck strength matters and that athletes with stronger necks experience lower head accelerations during impacts. The question is, how will you and Kinmetrix take the knowledge and data generated from your device's ability to generate baseline data for athletes across age, gender, and different sports and make a difference to safer sport engagement?
Great question. One of the actual research articles was from Collins et al., and they explained that for every pound of neck strength that was increased, there was a 5% reduction in concussions. That's a bold statement, and that's one obviously we want to prove over and over and over again. We are anonymously collecting data around the age, the sport, what position they are in the sport, gender, handedness. We see Kinmetrix as being two different companies. One, we have a device that's the only device in the world that can take data around the neck from an assessment that's both isometric and isokinetic. We get to put that information into a software that um, basically spits out a training regime that could be under light, there's strength, there's performance, and there's elite. And depending on who they are, where they are, and what they do, that smart software can then start strengthen so that we see a reduction in deficits and we see symmetry and obviously a strength production. So that's one company, and that's a very, very important company. But the other part of this company is that there is no normative pool of data anywhere in the world. We don't know anything about strength. I've met with Eric Lindros, I've met with so many athletes, NFL, Formula One, UFC, and they all kind of sitting around wondering, we think Max Verstappen is strong. He looks strong. His neck's like this, but they can't quantitate. They don't actually don't know how strong he is. The second part to this company will be to share data around this. So collect this normative pool of data and share it with research institutes, performance institutes, teams, schools, people doing their PhDs, so that we can enlarge that and understand more about what's happening in our pool of data. We are collecting it, and it's going to be an incredibly important piece to the neck strength.
Absolutely. It sounds that division of the two kind of companies makes so much sense. And there's such a need for it with the lack,
Mm.
kind of like you said, um, objective data that's out there. The two podcast interviews the OSTA is doing on the neck have exposed something you have underscored in your response. Despite limited high quality evidence, the expert consensus is clear. Neck training should be systematically included in performance and injury prevention programs across all levels. What differs is the intensity and monitoring based on age, sex, and sport demands. I have a two-part question for you.
Okay.
First, are you familiar with the Delphi method, an international panel of 18 experts, including sports scientists, strength and conditioning coaches, therapists, and physicians, that reached agreement on 57 recommendations for implementing neck training in sports? And does your Kinmetrix device comply with or advance neck strength conditioning in line with those goals?
Yes, I am aware of the Delphi method, actually. And for those who aren't, um, basically, when there is no data to substantiate a decision, what the Delphi method is they'll group experts for their expert opinion and their expertise to come up with the solutions for that. So around the neck, I believe there was 6 or 7, and they wanted these experts got together and they decided that we needed a broader injury prevention protocol around the neck. They wanted it to be both isometric and dynamic. They wanted it to be what they called balanced. In our data, we call it symmetrical. We wanted symmetry around all basically 360 degrees. And they wanted it to be progressive. So instead of taking just rehab, they wanted to make sure that whatever was going to be lumped into the Delphi methods protocol, that you were going to progress right through to, let's say, performance or elite. And they wanted it to be sports specific. The good news is we are the only device that does all 7 of the outlines that they had created from this meeting. And so what Kinmetrix does, and hopefully, everyone goes to the website to look at kind of how it works and what we're talking about. Our device can both assess isometrically and isokinetically. We can do 360 degrees of motion and we can do a 74-degree arc. We do 100% of the range of motion in any angle. We typically and traditionally do 8 cardinal points. So we'll do flexion, extension, the side laterals, and then the 45s. That's how I do most of my assessments or maybe my strengthening. But for example, if you've got somebody like Max Verstappen, or let's say it's a quarterback for the NFL, and they tend to put their neck in an unusual degree, we can actually assess them in that particular degree. There isn't anything that our device can't do in those 2 ranges. Um, we also progress. Our smart software will take, let's say, a 50 or 55% of their assessment amount and progress it all the way to 85. As they reach a score of 6 out of 6 for symmetry, and we're seeing an increase in strength, the software automatically keeps moving them out. Ideally, if you thought of 8 cardinal points, it'll look like an octagon. And what we want to see is that octagon get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then we know that they're hitting their peak performance, or peak force rather, and their symmetry. And then when it comes to the sport specific piece that this group got to, what's been really interesting for me as an AT is to travel all over the place and find out what these athletes individually require. What was interesting, when you look at our data, we have a chart where there's a ramp up like there would be with any contraction. And what we want to see, this nice solid line. So it tells us that there's no stochastic movement and they're not struggling with it, and that they are hitting that number. But in somebody like a UFC fighter, where the neck is used and the head is used as a body part to fight with, they don't want to see a ramp up. Where we would actually start analyzing the data would be after the ramp up. They needed to push that line back, and they need to start analyzing the data immediately, because if they have a ramp up, their athlete could get injured. That's been really interesting. Look at Formula One with Max Verstappen. We're doing some work with Red Bull. And same thing, they can't have a ramp up. They have to hold G forces isometrically for long periods of time. So they need to hold isometric contractions for 10 minutes. The other thing that we can do in line with the sport specific stuff is we can individualize. We've created different programs for the NFL, different programs for UFC, different programs for Formula One. We are, I would say, in time with them, maybe a little bit ahead, only because we have the device to do this with. We're not behind trying to source it and figure it out. Um,
Thank you for explaining the Delphi method for anyone who wasn't familiar with it, but also just wow. You share details on Kinmetrix ARC product and how it takes data collection and measurement to a new level for all committed to best practice in clinical neck care.
Yes. Well, if anybody has looked at past research on the neck and its correlation to injury prevention, injury reduction, or even concussion reduction, meta analysis has taken everything that's out there and went, well, you know what? We can't really say for sure that this data is correct because the methods to get there have been inaccurate, inconsistent, and maybe not safe, right? So we're the first device that when you sit in it, our sensors, our robotics, um, basically create consistency, accuracy, and we can recreate it time and time again, which is what any type of research is looking for. There's no room for error. When that person sits back in the chair, the sensor comes down, that pad is in the exact same place every single time. And so we can recreate and collect data that's accurate. That's the biggest takeaway with what our device does. The Kinmetrix ARC is a marriage between robotics and sensors. They're not bands, they're not plates. It's basically considered digital resistance, which means that it's all designed within the software, the hardware, and the firmware. It's not somebody picking a weight and saying, I think it's the same. Or when you use, let's say, a band, the further you get away from its attachment point, we don't know how that's changing in terms of resistance. We know laws of physics tell us that the further away from your start point, the heavier and the more resistance it is. But when using that stuff for research, it's just not consistent and accurate. We're the first ever device that can be all those things.
Kim, you are inspirational, and this focus on netting and the data that will emerge to be added to the larger body of knowledge is terrific. Kudos to Kinmetrix for taking this device to a state of commercialization. ARC will make it possible to test neck strength for sport readiness, pre injury, maintain neck strength for peak performance throughout their career, and for clinicians to now gain critical knowledge to bring the neck to the same standard of knowledge as the rest of the body. In closing, Kim, I'll give you the last word. Perhaps you can share the Kinmetrix takeaway message that you have for any therapists, coaches, or athletes listening, what they should know about the product, how to contact you to try one out or become a subscriber so they can add the digital neck strengthening device immediately to their clinical tools.
Awesome. Thank you. The biggest takeaway is that as we build these athletes to be stronger, faster, more explosive, I want people to think about the fact that with a weak neck, you're always going to be one step behind. As clinicians, we know how important the neck is for activity and performance and body awareness, all those things, your autonomic nervous system, everything that the neck is involved in. And if we're not putting special attention into strengthening the neck, creating balance within the neck, then we're always going to be creating a risk problem. So my takeaway is please put time and energy into the neck. Understand where the dysfunctions are, where the deficits lay. And to get a hold of us, my email's Kim at Kinmetrix, Metrix.com. And you can look at our website, which is www.kinmetrix.com. I do highly emphasize clinicians and athletes and coaches and ATs to try it. It's definitely a user experience you've never had before. It's pretty spectacular to see your charts and understand what's happening at the neck and how to strengthen it. And then if you have any questions, get a hold of us and we'd be happy to help.
Awesome. And for those who couldn't take down all that information quickly enough, the links to Kinmetrix and basic information on the ARC device are on the OSDA website. And I just want to thank you, Kim. It was been a pleasure and so great chatting with you about this exciting technology. I'm certainly excited about it, and I'm sure all of our listeners will be as well. Thanks so much for coming on to Health in Motion.
Thank you for having me. It's been awesome.